It all started when I made this trestle table out of solid walnut. Made it according to some old New Yankee workshop plans and turned out okay, and I was happy to have it in the house, but once I did, my wife pointed out that the chairs don't match it, and would I be willing to make some walnut chairs to match the walnut table. So after thinking a while on a design, I went with the Windsor chair design. And like almost everything else I've ever made, I didn't know what I was tackling once I got underway, but now that I've made two, I'm pretty much committed to make a set of four. First one I made is on the right. That's the one without arms. I intended to make one with arms, but by the time I started on the back, I realized I didn't make the seat blank wide enough to accommodate the average person's behind. So I finished that one without arms, then made the second one, redesigning it to accommodate arms. I didn't use any plans for this. I just looked at photographs of them and measured them, and so the proportions are slightly different with each one, and the third one's probably going to be a little different from these two, but the idea is each one that I make will be better than the one before it. So I intend to start a series of YouTube videos that show how I make them. It's quite a process, and I hope to bring you along. These are the billets made out of butternut that I'm going to make the seats of my chairs with. The first chair I used walnut, but I got a hold of this this butternut log from a landowner, and it was dead already. And butternut is a carver's choice of woods. It carves very easily, so I thought it'd be a good seat bottom choice because you carve it out. The stock you finish with has to be 2 inches thick. So I start them with quite a bit of thickness, so if I make a mistake, I can whittle it down. When you get your raw material for free, you don't need to be quite as thrifty with it. This is a section of walnut log I intend to make the legs and some of the spindles with. You want to, when you're turning wood, it's good to use green lumber. It's much easier to turn. As you can see, the walnut log has the sapwood and then the dark inner wood. And I know that there is a process that you can steam a log to bleed the pigment out into this sapwood. I don't do that. On my chairs, you can see some of the sapwood I leave behind. I stain it darker to make it more uniform. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Every walnut log has a pith that is large and chambered, and that will give you problems when you're sawing them into boards, because that pith it'll run a big streak right up your boards and it won't look very good, and so you're mindful of that when you're splitting your log. You try to just have your pith be in the waist so you can leave it out completely. Kind of a good story behind how I got this log. I have a farmer friend who's also a client, and there was a day I met up with him to look at some farm fields he was expanding. He was cutting the trees along the edges of the field to make them bigger. And on our way out, I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you have any walnut trees anywhere on your land that I could use to make these chairs?" And he thought, and he says, "I'm sure I got some somewhere, but I'm not sure where." So we showed up to look at his fields, and we drove along the edge of the field, and the first tree we saw was this nice sized walnut standing right there on the edge of the field where it'd be easy to get to. And I just laughed, and he said, "Sure, Pete, you can have that tree." And I was able to go on my own and just cut it right into the field and cut it into manageable lengths like this and load them onto my pickup. And walnut lumber, as you probably know, is really expensive if you buy it commercially. I like all my raw materials to come straight from the woods. I'm a professional forester. It just makes it fun for me when I know where the tree came from, and Oftentimes I'm the one that cut the tree down or cut the log out of the tree. So I don't get into exotic woods and stuff like that. I like to use all the great hardwoods that we grow right here in New York State. It was a moment of revelation when you open up your wood, where you find all either how good it is or how bad it is. Like here we got a limb that was growing through that makes the grain all wavy. This side the grain's nice and straight. We use that, so I've halved it and I can quarter it. Piece right there isn't too bad. You can probably get at least 2 legs out of that one. This one's got that wavy grain, so I can try to work out this side. I pointed out on the walnut log the chambered pith, and this is butternut billet, but butternut is in the walnut family, and it also has that chambered pith. And you know, if that gets left in a board, it's going to leave this big ugly streak in there that you really can't fill. So if you can split your log along that pith line, that'll easily wind up in your waste. So with each one of these spalls, we have to joint them so that they're square, and we can cut them to length and eventually edge joint them into a panel that we cut the seat bottom out of. When you're splitting these things by hand, you strive to get one nice flat surface. That has more to do with the grain of the tree than your skill as a splitter, but I find it helps if you can split it radially, you know, from the center point outwards. This is a nice flat surface. My jointer has a 6-inch capacity, and it's only a little bit over, so this is flat enough for my bandsaw. I can just trim the bark away and then run it on the jointer.